Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hoboken Library's STEM Careers Panel Discussion series. This is actually the second panel discussion thus far. My name is Bernadette Patino, and I'm a librarian here in the Library and the Information and Digital Services Department, and also the Access Services Department. So thank you to our wonderful panelists for being here today. And today's focus is on the fields within biology, biochemistry, and chemistry. And then today, Joseph and Dr. Agnes will be sharing about why they decided to pursue a STEM career, how they entered the field, what their experiences have been like so far, from the beginning up until now, and any advice that they have for students who would like to enter the STEM field or who are really thinking about it. So yes, just to share a quick rundown about tonight's program and sort of the flow of things, each of our panelists will present for about 15 minutes or so. And then at the very end, we'll have a short Q&A. Even panelists, you're welcome to ask questions with each other as well. I'll throw in a few questions too, and if some of our audience members might have some questions. So yes, and to briefly now introduce our panelists, today we have with us Dr. Agnes Berki, a professor of biology at Caldwell University, and who is also the chair of the science program of the New Jersey Academy of Science. And then we also have today with us Joseph Allen, the laboratory manager at Stevens Institute of Technology and also a research scientist. So with that, I'll give the floor to you, Dr. Agnes.
It's a privilege to be here, and I welcome everyone here and also the YouTube viewers later on. And if I would like to restart maybe with the slides so that we have some visuals under my story. Wonderful. So thank you so much. So again, I feel very privileged to be here today, and maybe we can go for the next slide. So STEM has challenges, as you were going to hear from me and from Dr. Allen, but also it provides great successes if you decide to actually pursue it. So may I have the next slide? So a little bit about me. So I'm Agnes Berki, and you probably hear my accent. So I came from Hungary, and we were going to talk about it a little bit later. So Hungary is in Europe, and it's very close to Ukraine. Actually, we have a border with Ukraine, and it's quite timely to actually recognize that. So I'm a professor of biology, as it was mentioned, at Caldwell University, and I teach here for 11 years now. And so my field is really biology. So maybe we can have the next slide. So when I was growing up, I was actually very good at art and also at science. So I won a lot of awards in drawing. So this is not my drawing. I just put it up to illustrate it. But I was really good at drawing, and I got like many awards. But I also liked biology. And so that was the question. So what I'm going to pursue, art or biology. And so I read a lot of biology books, and I really felt being a biologist is like a detective because you can have so many questions and you can find answers. So eventually, between the battle between art and biology, I actually decided to pursue science, and biology came a little bit later in my life. So between art and science, I chose science. And so I entered a college and a university at the natural sciences. So we can maybe have the next slide. So I then was accepted to a bachelor's and master's combined program at the University of Debrecen. And that's the left slide. This is a very old university. And I had a double major, chemistry and physics, and also education certificate I obtained. So it's a 5 years program, and it was very hard. So the first semester, I almost failed all my classes. And then it was like, wow, I thought I'm smart because in high school, I had straight A's. And in college, I failed almost all my classes. So I thought, okay, so I have to change something, right? So then I studied harder. We had study groups, and then it helped me to kind of, get the hang of it. And so by the time I finished, my diploma was an excellent diploma. So that's how I graduated. But then I wanted to study further because I actually fall in love with biology. So my major was chemistry and physics, but then I had a class which was an elective, and it was cell biology. And I went to that class and we learned about proteins. And I really didn't know much about proteins at the time, about amino acids and all that. And they were explaining, the professor was explaining how the muscle works, how the muscle contracts. So I'm sure you know about actin and myosin. You probably heard it a million times, how muscle contracts. For me, that was the very first time. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, how do these proteins know what to do? It's so complex and they just do it. And that was like an aha moment for me, like an awe. And so that's when I really decided to pursue biology. So at the bachelor's and master's in Hungary, you have to have a thesis. So master's with the thesis. And so my thesis work was biochemistry because I really wanted to do biology. So I studied an enzyme that is found in the urine, and so that was my master's. But falling in love with biology, I also fall in love with research, and so I wanted to study further. So I actually completed my PhD in molecular biology and pharmaceutical sciences at the School of Pharmacy in Baltimore, Maryland. And so this is the building, and then I was up on the seventh floor, so it's a very good picture. I didn't take it, but it's very good because it actually shows the level I was at. I was working at the seventh floor, and I learned what research is about. So maybe we can go to the next slide. And so, of course, there were challenges, and we all face challenges in our lives. So, first of all, I came to the United States when I was 26 years old at the time, but I didn't speak English. Actually, I just could say hello, and that's it. So first, I had to learn the language. So that was hard for me. But in a year or so, I did be able to speak it, and I applied to the PhD program in Baltimore. And then, I started it, but the language was still a barrier because for the lectures, when I had to read the material, I had to translate 7 words in each sentence. That's how it started. So for the first 3 months, I thought I'm going to die, but then I didn't die, as you can see, right? I survived it, but it was very hard. And of course, the culture. There is a very big, cultural shock between Hungary and here. And when I came, Hungary was still under socialism. So it's coming from kind of like a communist country to the U.S. It was a big shock. And during my PhD, when I was doing my PhD, my father passed away, and that was a very, very hard time. And so life will happen. There will be things that prevent you from doing things. And so these were the challenges. So how I came through it: language, of course, hard work, culture. You start to view the things that are positive, and life events. You have a community of people who help you. A support system is very important, and so those were my friends who helped me through that difficult time to accept the death of my father. And it was 21 years ago, and I still tear up because it's a huge loss for me, and I can thank my father for many things in my life. So we can go to the next slide. That would be really great. So then, uh, STEM, right? It is hard. Why is it hard? Because it's a new language. Learning science, no matter what we want, biology or engineering or chemistry or physics, it has its own language. And so we have to know the terms, we have to understand them, we have to understand certain concepts. So it is hard to do STEM, but it's a lot of fun. When we figure out this language, and we start to see connections, it's so intellectually stimulating. It is like being a detective. And so, what is the fun part? So, doing actually research, and I'm a teacher, and so teaching it. So research is quite amazing because you can identify a problem, and which I do with students all the time. So, for example, they come from Dominican Republic and they say, "Well, I wonder whether or not this remedy that my grandmother is talking about is really antibiotic. So let's check it out." And so there is a test, and we can check that. And so that's so much fun. It is like being a detective, and so that's what I love about STEM biology. is that you can have find many problems, but at the same time you can solve them, and that's how science and research and medicine goes forward, right? Because there are questions, then we can, using the scientific method, we can then solve. And so research for me is great fun. And teaching is also fun because, I know now many things. Of course, I don't know everything because no one knows everything. And I think the more we learn, the more we see how much we don't know, right? So anyway, so teaching is amazing because what I know, I love to share. And of course, I teach general biology, which is fun too. But I think real fun starts when we have a little bit higher biology, like cell biology. I love teaching immunology, and so teaching is another fun that I think STEM is great about. I also work at industry, and I think it contributes to finding new medications. I work for Sharing Plow. Um, now it doesn't exist because Merck bought it over, and so Sharing Plow doesn't exist anymore. But I was at the research and development, and we worked on remedy for cancer. And I think most of you know about actually Sharing Plow because they were the ones who developed Claritin. Many people take Claritin because of allergies, so that was actually developed by Sharing Plow. I wasn't part of it; it was already produced by the time I joined. For 2 years, I worked there. So that's also an amazing opportunity with STEM to contribute to developing medications for people. So the next slide. And then what are some of the stimulations or inspirations, right, for me as a researcher and also as an educator going to conferences like and panel discussions like this, right? Because you can see other people work, other people what they did, and then you learn from it and get ideas. So I love conferences to go there, and also I take students to conferences as well. So what happens is we do research together, and there are undergraduate symposia, and we go there so they can present their work, and it's amazing because I think the role of science, the role of research, right, to contribute to humankind, right, to contribute to take knowledge forward. And so the full circle in research is you have an idea, you actually find the answer and take it to people, then say, okay, this remedy actually works, right? That eucalyptus oil is really antibiotic. And so, and what can we do with that? Like how we can change and better people's lives through research. And that's the full circle. And I think conference does that because we go there, we explain what we did, and we can change people's lives by it. And so I love conferences, and I put my work out, but also where there are conferences and students are, for example, have to be judged. I sign up as a judge, and then I give some of my wisdom to the students who will be the next generation of researchers, right? So that is some of the, for me, one of the most important things to share and learn, and I think grow together as a community. Next slide, please. And so STEM, like I think what wisdom I can give, right? About STEM, I think STEM is hard, but it's worthwhile, and so do it. We just have to do it, and then it will be really rewarding for when we do it. And so I put this is the motto of Caldwell University, Sapientia et Scientia. In Latin, it means knowledge and wisdom. And I think it's quite appropriate to share this today because that it is more knowledge. If we have knowledge and the wisdom, then we know like how to contribute to our own lives and our family and our community and also the whole world. So STEM, I think the advice that I want to do is to do it. And I think what is beautiful about STEM, what I feel, being international. Now I'm a U.S. citizen, but when I came here, I was an international. I think what STEM does, it's a great equalizer. No matter where you come from, no matter what accent we speak, no matter what our skin colors are, when we know what we know, and we use it for the betterment of ourselves and everybody else. It's a great equalizer. There's no one in STEM what is important as our knowledge and how we share that. And I think that's one of the very important thing about STEM. And then this concludes my presentation. And thank you so much for your attention.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Agnes, for sharing. Yeah, all the experiences that you've had, not letting early setbacks stop you from wanting to pursue like the STEM field. It's really inspiring. And yeah, even like just the like understanding that, you know, we have science, like we pursue STEM careers ultimately to change the world for the better. Very inspiring words. So thank you so much, Dr. Agnes, for sharing. Yes, and then next I will give the floor over to you, Joseph.
Thank you again as well. Very nice presentation. All right, thank you everyone for coming today. I'm Joseph Allen. I am the lab manager at Stevens Institute of Technology for the School of Engineering and Science. So today I have a little presentation for everyone as well. Let me see if I can bring it up. Here we go. There we go. If everyone can see this now. Okay, great. So this is a little website I put together based upon my experience of working in STEM. So I guess we can start with my name and everything like that, what STEM field. So basically the STEM field I'm in is biochemistry, molecular biology, immunology, those kinds of fields. That's what I've worked in. And a little bit more about me. So I have worked in science for about 15 years now. I've worked in many different fields. What led me to go into STEM? I think what really inspired me was I was always asking questions. You know, I always wanted to understand how things worked. You know, why do they work this way? You know, how can we improve that? And I think the knowledge of understanding that really drove me to study, to learn more. So I think, you know, that's what encouraged me to go into STEM. I just really wanted to question everything around me. So the path that I kind of took to get here, we'll start with my education. So basically, I have a bachelor's of science degree in biochemistry from Northeastern University. I actually just completed my graduate certificate in life science management towards my master's in biotechnology. And currently, I am in graduate school working on my master's degree in bioscience management. I have taken some more courses in R for biostatistics and working with that. And I'm currently also hoping to get into other programs as well. So a lot of education. I think it's great. You know, I think one of my favorite reasons about STEM is just you know, you get to learn so much. I think learning is one of the greatest things that we can have in this world. You know, every day I love to learn. I think that's my favorite part about STEM is that every day I get to learn something new, and it's not that just I get to learn something new. It's that it's able to help people with the knowledge that I'm learning. So we can go to the positions that I've had in STEM as well. So this is from the pandemic. I've actually recently had a lot of publications from COVID-19 research, so we can go into that later as well. So my experience. So I started working in after I graduated from Northeastern University at a CRO, a contract research organization called Horizon, that did immunology and oncology research there. So a lot of different things, a lot of clinical studies. There was automated research as well, getting into automated robotics for clinical usage. So great company, great experience there. My next position was at Modern Meadow. This was in the protein analytics department. That company basically makes artificial leather using protein from bacteria. So did a lot of SDS pages with that, a lot of protein quantification, another great experience there. Then I worked at Pfizer for a couple of years in their bacterial immunological programs. So basically we're developing different vaccines for bacterial infections. I worked on a GBS vaccine for their assay development projects, another clinical study. A lot of great research was going into that, and they're still working on that pipeline for that kind of vaccine technology. After I worked at Pfizer, I went to NYU Langone Health. I was a senior research section there. I started there right before the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was very interesting having that perspective working in a hospital, especially a scientific research hospital like NYU Langone Health, where they were one of the first in the nation to receive these vaccines and were able to actually do scientific research in regards to the efficacy and effectiveness of the vaccines. So the next position I had, which is what I have right now, is I'm the laboratory manager for the School of Engineering and Science at Stevens Institute of Technology. Basically, I run multiple departments, the chemical and chemistry biology and the biomolecular engineering. Those two departments, I manage a lot of labs for them. I help organize research, and I'm also in contact with a lot of key vendors and key administrative people that I work with to make sure logistically everything runs smoothly for multiple laboratories. So it's a great job, lots of running around, lots of making sure things get done. But I think one of the most rewarding parts of the position I have now is that, like my colleague said earlier, Dr. Agnes, it's being able to give back to the next generation to learn STEM. I think that's what makes everything worth it, is that I'm able to help this next generation learn and become the great scientists, research doctors that they can be. So moving on. So this is a great photo. I'll stop here. We were doing some research, and they were doing a photo shoot, and I thought it was nice to look at. So I always thought that was a great photo. Oh, sorry, if the email comes up. Oh no, geez. Okay. So I guess we can go to maybe leadership roles and talk about challenges that I had during STEM. I think some of the challenges I've really had during STEM come through, not just learning, because of course there's a learning curve to learning with STEM, but it's also the interaction you have with many different people throughout all of the different contacts you would have. So I think one of the challenges that a lot of people going to STEM will face is that networking. Networking is huge in STEM. I think once you have a good network, you're able to accomplish more. You have contacts to help you with certain logistics. You have, PIs, mentors that are helping you with experimental design. So I think networking is key to be able to succeed in STEM. And I think that's something I had some issue with, but, you learn from your mistakes and you're able to move forward. And now, LinkedIn, other sites, Orchid, organizations like that are able to help you network and gain a following like that. Let's see. So what has my professional experience been like so far? I'd say it's been great. Having a lot of fun. As you can see from the pictures here, there's a lot of cool research going on. So we had the COVID-19 papers and different experiences. This is the same thing. Team building, like I said, networking and teamwork is a great way for success. Learning from mistakes, as I said before, and then incorporating innovative leadership. I think that's a mouthful, but I think it really comes down to it's that you see people and how innovative they really are. Like you'll have managers, you'll have PIs, you'll have presidents of companies, you have all these people that you see involved in STEM, and you see how they're able to innovate and lead not just the scientists, but also administrative assistants, the lab managers like me, everyone that's involved in this kind of program. Like I think that's something that's left out a lot, but I think innovative and really bringing your own into projects really gets that kind of growth mindset you would need to be in STEM. See, here are some other pictures that I have. I have a lot of pictures of experience. So this picture, that was a really big experiment I had back in the day. This is when I worked at Pfizer. We were doing assay development for phase 2 clinical trials. And I was testing this automated instrument here to see if it worked just as well versus a manual assay that was done. So I actually did a lot of math, a lot of experimental design. It turns out they work pretty well, very similar. So we would able to incorporate this new automated technology into our workflow without sacrificing any of the actual science, I guess you want to say, behind it. So it was great when you're able to influence new experiments with things like that. Let me see, I can go more down here. Here's a little video I have of the actual experiment. So we want to seal these plates, and when you seal the plates, you're able to get a uniform environment within those plates. And so, you would be able to have a unique environment with each of those wells, and that's what we want to have. When those unique environments are there, we can do certain concentrations of the vaccine we're working on. It doesn't work that way, but things like that. You could change an instrument here to see if it worked just as well versus a manual assay that was done. So actually did a lot of math, a lot of experimental design. It turns out they work pretty well, very similar. So we would able to incorporate this new automated technology into our workflow without sacrificing any of the actual science, I guess you want to say, behind it. So it was great when you're able to influence new experiments with things like that. Let me see, I can go more down here. Here's a little video I have of the actual experiment. So we want to seal these plates, and when you seal the plates, you're able to get a uniform environment within those plates, and so you would be able to have a unique environment with each of those wells, and that's what we want to have. When those unique environments are there, we can do certain concentrations of the vaccine we're working on. It doesn't work that way, but things like that. You could change things like that. So it was great. I was really excited about that experiment. Advice would I give to students pursuing STEM fields? I think the overall advice I give is that it's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You shouldn't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 30. Everyone starts somewhere different. And if you're starting just in STEM, you're starting where everyone else started, at the bottom, and you're going to work your way up. So I think that's something the advice I would give is that, you're never going to stop learning. You're always going to keep improving. And I think everyone needs help, and that's what the network's for. So I think that's my 3 pieces of advice I would give to anyone really looking to get into STEM. You can stop sharing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. All those photos are really cool. I'm surprised that corporations will let you kind of take lab photos. I don't know. I think I watched one of these recent documentaries about a recent biotech company that didn't go so well. And I don't know, I thought of corporate secrets and things like that. But it's great that yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but if you did notice, I did edit some of those photos because you're right. I probably wasn't allowed to take pictures of that, and no one ever said anything. And I work on off hours sometimes, but yeah, I wanted to make sure I protected the anonymity of the research being done there, as well as for that corporation that I used to work for. So I agree with you. Sometimes you can't, but I made sure that I was able to protect anonymity.
Yes, kind of along those lines. So I did have a few follow-up questions. So I think it's really interesting that the two of you have had experience working both in academia and also in industry. I remember when I was, in high school and college, if I thought of someone who had studied the pure sciences, I would just think oh, maybe they work somewhere in a hospital or something, or I only thought of professors in a university. The whole industry piece, even whether it's pharmaceuticals or elsewhere, wasn't something I was as familiar with. So my question for the two of you is what are the biggest differences between working in academia and industry, and in terms of pursuing a career in either of them, when you're doing your graduate work, your PhD, are there any differences in what you would be doing if you plan on ending up in academia or industry?
So would you like to go first?
Yeah, maybe, and whatever I leave out, then you maybe can add to that, right? So in academia, you can have one one kind of question, and then you can follow it for 30 years, 50 years, and then you write grants and write articles about it. And I think in industry, it's very different because the industry has to produce, for example, a medication, or they're going to develop a technique that they service the community. But the direction of that can change very quickly. So when a researcher in STEM works in industry, then you can work on something for a year or two, and then it will be dropped because there will be another focus. And then you have to follow what the industry feels important for that particular company. So I think in industry, you have to be very much more flexible. I mean, you always have to be flexible. Of course, it's kind of necessary for us to be good professionals. But in industry, you have to be even more flexible, because anytime a project that you worked so hard on will be, okay, we move on to something else, and now you have to put that aside and go on. So I think for me, that's a huge difference between the two.
Like to add on to that. I think
Sure,
some of
sure.
the differences I've seen is that with academia, things are sometimes more laid back. You have more open communication, and with understanding what projects people are working on in industry. Sometimes the person you sit next to in your office, they'll be working on a project you won't even know about. There's boxes within boxes, and so there's a lot of confidentiality involved in that too. So it's a whole different aspect. I think one of the things I really know about the difference between industry and academia, I think you were touching upon that, is that industry, they're not there to further the research. They're there to make money. At the end of the day, that's what matters. With the academia, we're here about research. We want to publish. We want to have more research. With the industry, you have to make a product, and I think that's the main difference between them. And if you're looking to really go into industry and make a product like a vaccine or like a pharmaceutical, things like that, industry is great. But if you're looking to do solid research and without a final product, I think academia is the way to go.
There's also a little bit different expectations as a professional. And Alan, Dr. Alan, it was great. I think it was really good that the things that you told about. I think, and while you were talking, it reminded me of a little bit different expectation in academia and in industry. So in industry, you are expected as a professional to always learn and then have promoted or move a job every 3-5 years. And if you don't do it, if you stagnate, then it's not viewed as something positive. However, in academia, actually, you want to have roots. You stay in one institution, you become, a full-time professor, for example, you get tenured, and that's what is valued, right? So it's not as so a little bit different expectations in the two fields.
I definitely agree with that. I think, people, there's always trying to find upward mobility within industry, and academia, you can really hang out in a position for decades potentially. So I think there is a big difference, and like you're right, in the way growth is, the mindset of growth for those two different institutions. Yeah.
And kind of thinking about, like preparing for a STEM career. Obviously, as the two of you mentioned, there's a lot of school involved. So this is more of a question for, maybe folks who are currently in college trying to make decisions about what they want to do after college. What does it look like, especially currently, like what does preparation look like for an undergrad? Say if they're preparing to get into graduate school, do you have any pieces of advice for them of, things to do while they're in undergrad? What kind of mindset to have as they're preparing for graduate school and in it for the long haul? So any advice that either of you have for college students who are thinking about going to graduate school?
So maybe Dr. Joseph Allen, maybe you can start, and then whatever I think maybe you left out, I will add. So go ahead.
Idea for anyone looking to go into grad school is do some undergraduate research. I think that's the best step you could take in that right direction. I did undergraduate research for my bachelor's. I worked in a chemistry laboratory, and I eventually worked there as part of work study. Eventually made my way up to get a grant through the NIH and NIDA. It was awesome. Yeah, it was great. And eventually they were able to make me a position within that lab, and I was able to work there and do hands-on research as an undergraduate. And I think that really propelled my career to where it is today, especially going to grad school while working full-time. It is a lot, but I think I wouldn't change it for anything else, because that experience was invaluable. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. as an undergraduate, you definitely want to have a research experience. And I know many of you who may be watching this program will say research, it sounds so mystical. I'm not smart enough to do research. But that's actually not true. It is how to do research is learnable. So, for example, all time, someone wanted to become a shoemaker, right? You found the best shoemaker around, and you became not a disciple, but I just couldn't think of the word, right?
Apprentice.
Apprentice, yeah, that's yeah, apprentice, exactly. That's what the word I was looking for, apprentice. And so you learn how to make shoes or whatever. And research is the same thing. Research is learnable. You know how detectives learn to become detectives? That's how a researcher learns to become a researcher. You go to another researcher and you learn it. Because of course in classes, you always learn about the scientific method, right? First is observation, and you make a hypothesis, and you do your experimentation and all that. We learned it every class, every science class, you learn it, but you don't know it until you do it. When you start doing it, it will going to make sense. Aha, I can do this. It's doable. We don't have to be Einsteins to do research. We can learn it. It's learnable. So I think if you have a favorite professor at college, go and ask, are you doing research? Or can we work out a project together to do research? They will be thrilled. And that will be your research. So do research, seek it out, and then do it. As Dr. Joseph Allen said, by doing it, you realize you like it or don't like it. So I worked over 100 students in my 11 years doing undergraduate research. And what happens is only 5 who said, I know I don't like this. And of course, you have to know what you don't like. It's as important to know what you don't like as what you like. And so, of course, if you don't like it, of course, now you're going to do something else. But then doing research, undergraduate research, you will know if you like it, then you will know that's what you want to do. And then you know which field, biology or chemistry, biochemistry, or whatever that may be. So you only will going to know it to do it, and I encourage you to do it because it's learnable and it's so much fun. Like we have a research class, we're supposed to be there in the class 3 hours. So we start at 1 and no one leaves before 6 or 7, and not because we tell them to stay. They just want to stay. So it's like, well, sometimes I say, I really have to get dinner. So now wrap it up. Let's go. So it's so much fun.
Fun ever.
Yep.
No, but I agree. I think you pointed out before, science is the great equalizer. I definitely agree with that. I think anyone can be a scientist. You just have to put in the work, the studying, and just honestly, some of it's a little bit of luck. Your experiments got to work out. So, I think anyone can do it. You just got to put in the time and the effort. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah, excellent. And then speaking of research, if you think back on your whole career, this can include like even if you're in high school and college, before you even became a professional, do you have a favorite research project that you worked on, at any point in your career? And what was it about and why was it your favorite?
You can go first.
I go first. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I will say one project which actually we did with one student. And why I want to say this is it is my favorite for one reason, because nothing worked. We tried everything and didn't work. But I will still tell you the story. So what happened was that we want to see whether or not a virus killed a certain bacterium. And this virus is called a phage. It has like a very special name because this virus can only kill bacterium. So usually when we say virus, then we know this usually kills eukaryotic cells. But when we say phage, we know it's a specific virus that kills a bacterium. So we wanted that to work. And I used with that before in another lab. And so we wanted to establish this in this Caldwell, right? And so we tried one method, didn't work. And we tried another method, and that didn't work. And we saw the third method, and it didn't work. And we tried the fourth, and it didn't work. And now the presentation time came, because after some time you have to, all these students who do undergraduate research, they have to present. And so the Caldwell research, they came about and had to present. And the student was absolutely devastated. What I'm going to say, I don't have results. But then what it is, it's the journey that is important, not the outcome. Because by trying all these methods, she learned them all. She knows how to do them. It didn't work for that particular question, but she tried it and she learned it. And so I told her, this is your story. And so we made a poster. We put all the expected results that we couldn't get, right? All the techniques she tried, all the expected results, and what are we going to do next? And so she presented, and of course, devastated that, everybody were going to like, boo. Now she got a first prize in her category. And I wanted to share this story because in case you're going to do research, if you are listening to right now, all the audience, right? And you will have a failure. I hope you will remember this story, that it's about the journey to the learning and problem solving and critical thinking, and it builds you up, and also character, because I always thought that student will not going to come back to the class. She was like, she will just disappear forever. And she came back week after week after week, facing all these failures, and that's character. So I wanted to share this story because this is my favorite in the terms that it's not the destination that matters, but the journey.
With an Einstein quote, like you just started, I think, because one of the quotes he said is like, someone asked him, like, what's the greatest trait a scientist could have? And his answer was character. It's character, especially when your experiment goes wrong and you have to say, this didn't work, what went wrong? That shows character, because you're saying, how do I change this to make sure I can get the outcome I want? And that's what it really takes. I think the greatest trait a scientist could have is their character. So yeah, I'll start off with I think my greatest experiment I have. I can share my screen again real quick. This guy. Yeah. So this was the first paper that I published with the COVID-19 pandemic. This was a paper that I did with NYU Langone Health. We are very happy about this. It's the immune response after the Pfizer mRNA vaccine. So this was actually showed that people that got one dose, if they were already exposed to COVID-19 previously, had the same effect of someone getting that was naive, where they were never infected with COVID-19, as someone getting 2 doses of the vaccine. So it was very interesting, showing that kind of immunological response that we had never seen before in response to a vaccine like this, because we never used it. So I was very proud to be part of this team. They did an excellent job, and it was great to be part of that. So I think that's one of my favorite experiments that I've been of, but personally, that's professionally. Personally, I think one of my favorite things I ever did was back in high school, actually. This was my senior year of high school, and there was a little pond down by the high school, and every year it got really big because of the rain. And I went down there one day, and there was tons of little tadpoles, like everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's really cool. And I went down there, and I had this giant fish tank in my parents' backyard for years. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to raise these tadpoles. So what I did was I filled up the fish tank. I Googled, Google was around back then, yeah. And I Googled how to, what do tadpoles eat? I don't know what tadpoles they even eat. And they ate frozen lettuce. I don't know if they still eat that or not. But, I froze some lettuce. The tadpoles grew legs and everything. They became little frogs. And I eventually turned the aquarium into a terrarium for the frogs to live in. And yeah, they live for like a couple of weeks. I don't know how long frogs live either. But yeah, I thought that was great. That was my first experience in animal husbandry, I guess. Animal lab, animal maintenance. But I thought it was a great experience, and it really deepens my desire for biology, for STEM, for understanding how these things work. And that's something I always remember to this day. I thought it was one of the greatest things I did, which is watch these little frogs go through their metamorphosis.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Agnes, you have some words.
Yeah, when Dr. Joseph Allen was talking, I remembered when I was a kid, the very like aha moment or really like a wow. I love always like microscopes and put things under them to actually observe how they look on that high magnification. And I think I was in middle school when the teacher brought in pond water, and then we had to put the pond water under the microscope, and there were so many little creatures there. And I was looking, it's like, wow, it's a totally new universe with all these little creatures, swimming and crawling around. And I think that was really, and I think that when I really fell in love with science.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Yeah, I think it shows, just like it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of curiosity, and a lot of determination to not let those, roadblocks get in your way. If you're facing these failures, you can go really far in a STEM field. And with the examples you shared, I love the range of them, like, oh, being back in high school and just growing some tadpoles to, later on down the line in your career to doing vaccine research, it's really the curiosity that like can carry you through trying to discover new things. And yes, I have one final question for the two of you tonight for our panel. So of course, science just doesn't exist in the lab. It does take working with the community as well. So if there's any, professional, campus or community involvement that you've done, I know some of you are a part of organizations as well. How did this contribute to your own development as a scientist?
So I will then start. Yeah, it's amazing. I think conferences we talked about, right, and symposia. That's where we actually meet and bring our research and check other or learn other people what they are doing. And so what happens is it does two things, right? It inspires us. It's like, oh, that's a great project, and 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 then can I do something similar, or oh, so, or it's a great technique, because so many techniques, because many times research is also what kind of techniques you use. And oh, that's a great technique, I didn't know about it, and then and then you try to establish it in your own lab. So learning techniques, learning new information, and also that's one like to it helps to build me up, yeah. And then but also then bringing our research to the community and then sharing and so build them up, right? So it's really like a give and take, and I think that's very important. And of course, writing scientific papers as Dr. Joseph Allen just did. And so I think, and that's really important because then it shows the peers, where we are in that research. And so symposia is good, and also writing articles, and I think that's very important.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question again? I just want to make sure I understood it fully.
Yeah, so just how did any professional or campus or community involvement contribute to your development as a scientist?
Okay, great. I think campus involvement, community involvement, I think that's what helped me become the scientist I am today. Like I said before, I worked as a work study student in a chemistry lab. I only got that chemistry lab job because I went to an undergraduate work study fair. I was involved on campus. I networked with the people in the lab. I was able to get that NIH grant because I was very vocal about how I wanted to work in that research lab. I was there after class every day, being like, hey, can I be involved in an experiment? Hey, what else can I do? So I think really trying to make that network, like I said before, is really key in becoming the scientist you want. No one's an island. Science is a totally collaborative effort. There's, Hollywood likes to point scientists like Eureka, like that one moment where everything's solved. That's not how some real scientists work. Real scientists, it's multiple people, a long time putting together something that everyone's like, I'm really glad I contributed to that. That's what real science is about. And it's about having that community. So yeah, I totally agree that being part of an involvement like that will be extremely beneficial to your career.
So in many campuses, as Dr. Joseph Allen mentioned, you have a chance to be a work study student, and then you can pick a science lab, for example, to help. And then first you're going to start with washing dishes, right? But then later on, you can be there during the labs and then you can become like a little bit like a teaching assistant in the lab, and then you can hear what's going on, right? And then you can go further. So in Caldwell University, for example, you can even become a teaching assistant. We do have a course called teaching assistant in the lab, and then you learn more, right? And then if there's a research opportunity, or at Caldwell, we also have a research class. It's a 400 level class that you can take. So there are many on every campus. There are many opportunities, and I think to seek that out and get involved, as Dr. Joseph Allen just said, to get involved. And it's really it's really a team effort. It's a team effort, because you maybe have an idea and then you talk to your colleagues about it, and it's like, oh yes, it's great, but what about this? And then it develops further. And so it's really a team effort, and it's a collaborative effort, and people are happy for you.